Hi guys, I want to talk you through a really cool producer, which is Veuve Ambal. They're actually one of the market leading and oldest producers of Crémant over in Burgundy. So why does that matter? What does it mean? So let me talk you through all of those things. When I'm looking for a sparkling, this is my go-to producer. Particularly this bottle specifically. So this is their Grand Cuvée, which basically means that it's one of the best wines that they produce. It's their leading wine. They are, as I said, the market leader and the oldest producer of Crémant in Burgundy. They started around 1898. If you're someone that sort of loves to champion female winemakers, it's actually produced by a woman, and it's just such a fantastic wine, or sparkling wine rather. So it's made in the same way as champagne, but because it's not from the region of Champagne, it's called Crémant. It actually has to meet certain criteria. So basically, highly regarded sparkling in France that's not from Champagne generally comes with Crémant in front of it. So you've got Crémant from like Loire Valley, for example. But the reason why I love Crémant from Burgundy is because it uses the varietals that are key to that region. If you go to somewhere like the Loire Valley, you're going to be looking at things like Chenin Blanc in the blend. So stylistically, it's a little bit different to Champagne, whereas stylistically, Crémant from Burgundy, it's the same as Champagne because it uses the key varietals in that region. When we're talking about Burgundy, we know it's known for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And the key varieties that we use to make Champagne are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Unless you're going with a Blanc de Blanc, which is just Chardonnay. Essentially, Blanc de Blanc means white from white. So we're making a white wine from white grapes. If it said Blanc de Noir, then it would be a white wine from red grapes. I think this is such a fantastic producer. If you're after a Blanc de Blanc, I highly recommend giving this a go. It has a beautiful sort of crisp apple, nice light weightlessness to it. It's the only kind of sort of nice weightlessness that I've had that's similar to Salon. Salon is probably the best, if not the best, champagne in the world. It's made only in exceptional years. It's from the region of Champagne. It's a Blanc de Blanc. I had the 2015 at a tasting event, and I've pretty much tried like all the big name champagnes that you can get. And for me, the only thing so far that has come anywhere close to that beautiful weightlessness that I had with Salon is actually this wine, this sparkling. So Blanc de Blanc, Crémant from Burgundy is the producer, market leader in the region, oldest producer, so 1898, but they're Grand Cuvée, I absolutely love. This is my go-to. If I ever feel like a sparkling, I go to this. I'm going to show you how to open it because we're coming into New Year's. And if you're not someone that likes the pop, or if you want to know the correct way to open a bottle of champagne, then I'm going to show you that. I'm also going to talk you through glasses because a lot of the time people serve their sparkling in a flute. Definitely get rid of your flutes. If you only have a white wine glass, definitely use that instead. Otherwise, a tulip flute. And the reason why I say that is when we're talking about those grape varieties, we've got Chardonnay, which normally would go in this glass as a varietal. I used it in another video, so that's why it's dripping. And then you've got a Pinot Noir glass. So also wider bowl, wider opening. So these are your two key varietals that we use to make champagne. And then you've got your flute, which is nothing like these glasses. It is very, very thin. You obviously have a very small opening. Basically what that means is it doesn't give those varietals that need air to breathe, it doesn't give them that. And so what it does is it preserves the bubbles, so it makes the bubbles look great because it's not getting any oxygen, but it also means you're not opening up any of the aromas, so you're missing what actually is fantastic about champagne. Years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of champagne, probably for that reason, because I'd had it in a flute and you can really tell the difference. Even if you don't have a tulip flute or a specific sort of champagne glass, then just a white wine glass, you will absolutely tell the difference. Just when you're pouring it, make sure to pour it slow and tilt it right into the glass so that we can preserve those bubbles. I'll show you that in a minute. I use a Riedel glass. It's a Superleggero champagne wine glass. So this kind of has the best of both worlds. You've got a little bit of a bigger bowl to bring out some of those aromas. You've got a smaller opening to capture them and also to not let too much of that oxygen escape. Yeah, as I said, those are the three key varieties. Quite often we're having them in the wrong glass. This is a fantastic producer. This is my go-to. It's made in the same way as champagne. So before I show you how to open it properly, I just want to step you through quickly champagne and how it's made. So champagne is made in what they call the traditional method. There's a variety of different ways of making sparkling. I think from memory there's about 6. So you've got the traditional method, the transfer method, the tank method, the Asti method, the ancestral method, and carbonization. So a lot of different ways. They range from expensive to more cost effective. So the most expensive way is the traditional method. The cheapest way is carbonization, where they just literally inject CO2 into the wine. The Asti method is more for Moscato, so it stops the fermentation early and you have single fermentation. The ancestral method is actually how they discovered champagne, where the fermentation happens in the bottle, but it also stays in the bottle and they don't riddle or disgorge it. And then you've got the tank method, where they make it in a tank to preserve the key varietal characteristics. That is typically how they make Prosecco, but the traditional way of making Prosecco is actually the traditional method. A lot of the Prosecco now is actually made in the tank method, preserves that varietal characteristics. You don't have that nice sort of biscuity, toasty flavor that comes from the lees aging. And the transfer method is basically a shorter version of the traditional method. So we transfer it to a tank and then we bottle it under pressure to retain the CO2. So lots of different ways to make sparkling, but the most expensive way is the traditional method. So basically what happens is we make a still wine, we add it to the bottle, we top it up with a mixture of sugar and yeast. We then put a cap on it, which is normally a crown seal, so kind of like a beer bottle cap. And then that kickstarts the second fermentation in the bottle. What happens when we're fermenting wine is we're converting that sugar and yeast to make alcohol. Through that process, carbon dioxide is expelled. That's with making any wine, but with sparkling, we have a lid on it. And even if we're making it in a tank, we keep the tank closed. So essentially what happens is that CO2 can't actually escape anywhere. And so it integrates into the wine. And that's actually what gives it the bubbles. And then what happens is through that fermentation process, the yeast is converting the sugar into alcohol, and that yeast through that process dies and it becomes what we call lees. And that essentially sits in the bottle. And so what happens is that we have that heavy sediment that goes to the bottom. We have 2 types of lees. So we've got gross lees, which are the heavy sediment that sink to the bottom, and fine lees, which are like little particles that float around in the wine. And they actually integrate some of their flavor into the wine. So it's a process called yeast autolysis. And that is what gives it that beautiful biscuity, toasty flavor. And then what happens is we need to remove that sediment. So what we need to do is we need to disgorge the wine, but to do that we need to riddle it. And what that is basically a process where very slowly over time we turn the bottle upside down. And so it means that the sediment gathers at the neck of the bottle, and then what we do is we dip the neck in a solution that freezes that little bit of wine and the sediment at the neck of the bottle, and then we disgorge it. So what we do is we lift that crown seal. And if you think of the cork popping off, there's so much pressure in a bottle of champagne. There's actually 4 to 5 times atmosphere. So it's about the same pressure as a car tire. And so it shoots out that sediment and that little bit of wine in the neck. And so then what we need to do is we need to top it up before we put the cork on it. So we top it up with a mixture of sugar and wine, and that's actually what gives it the sweetness level. And there's various different sweetness levels based on whether or not they add sugar through that top up period or not. So that's essentially what gives you the sweetness level. They then put a cork on it. They put the cage. The cage is actually there to protect you if there's a faulty cork. So this brings me finally to opening the bottle of sparkling. And when we're opening a sparkling, there's a correct way. Yes, you can pop it. Sometimes that's fun. Sometimes, you know, you want to spray all of your guests, kind of like a champagne baptism. But the correct way, or if you don't want to take someone's eye out, is to essentially control the bottle. I'm going to show you exactly what we do, but what we do is we don't pop the cork. We basically keep our thumb on it and we let the bottle do the work. So we twist the bottle and not the cork. And that means that when we can hold it in place, we get a little bit of a psst that sort of comes at the end. So think of it as kind of like a sigh and not a spectacle. Now for the most exciting part, particularly with New Year's coming up. This is a Crémant from Burgundy. This is my go-to sparkling. It's made in the same way as champagne, but without the price tag. So how do we open a bottle of sparkling the correct way? So we want to look for the little tag. There's one here. So it's like a little sort of flap that we can then pull the capsule off. If it doesn't have a little tag, then you can just use a knife and we pull that off. Enough to expose the cage essentially. So once we get to this stage, you want to turn the bottle on a 45-degree angle and you want to keep your thumb on the cork. Then what we do is we undo the cage. There's always 6 twists. That's the industry standard. And we just want to loosen it a little bit. So I can already feel the pressure under my thumb. So what I'm going to do is just slide my hand up and wrap it around the cork, but still keeping my thumb on it. And then I'm just going to twist the bottle from side to side very slowly. And I'm holding the cork in because there's a lot of pressure. I'm just going to very slowly turn it. And did you hear that little bit of a shh? That's the sound that it should make. Sometimes you might get a bit of a p, so it just depends on how slowly you can control the bottle, but that's essentially how you open it. Nice, slow, controlled. We didn't take anyone's eye out. We didn't shower them in champagne. And yeah, we didn't have the noise either. So if you don't like the noise, that is a perfect way to do it. In terms of pouring the glass, as I said, you want to go low and slow. We want to go right down the neck because we want to control the oxygen contact with the bubbles so that we can preserve as many bubbles as possible. I personally as well love to decant champagne. You're probably like, what? But yeah, it does really help to open it up. Just sort of 10 minutes in a decanter, pour it low and slow in. You can leave the decanter in the fridge if you want to keep it cool. The coolness also helps with preserving those bubbles. If you leave it in a decanter too long, essentially what will happen is you'll just lose the bubbles and you'll basically be drinking a still wine. So that's, yeah, how to open it, how to decant it. You can sort of swill it around to get some of the aromas, but as you can see, it fizzes up and then you're going to lose some of that oxygen. So sometimes just rocking it, if you want to get the aromas, just rocking it gently gives you a little bit of an opportunity to smell some more of those aromas, open it up a little bit, particularly if you don't want to decant it. Oh, beautiful. Green apple, biscuit, brioche. Just, oh, such a great sparkling. As I said, this is my go-to. I can't beat it. Fantastic producer, fantastic sparkling, made in the same way as champagne. It's just, yeah, it's so enjoyable. It's stylistically the same. And it just tastes great. It really does. It's got a nice sort of creamy mousse. The mousse is those bubbles. Oh, really nice. Green apple, stone fruit, biscuit, that brioche, a little bit of butter. Really nice. And also when you put the wine in your mouth and you can feel those bubbles, they're a beautiful creamy mousse. And you can tell the quality of a bubble by how it reacts in your mouth. So if you have a sip of champagne and you hold it, or sparkling, and you hold it in your mouth, and it like fizzes up really aggressively, almost like having a Coca-Cola or something like that, like a soft drink, and it fizzes up really rapidly, that's not a very good quality bubble. It's what we call an aggressive bubble. This is a beautiful creamy mousse. It just is soft, delicate. It kind of foams up, but almost in a way that's like an emulsion that you'd get at a fine dining restaurant. You just give it a little bit of a swill in your mouth and it's just, oh, it's beautiful. That creamy mousse, so much flavor. I just love the combination of that toastiness, the green apple, the stone fruits, the citrus that's coming through. It's just, oh, so nice, so beautifully balanced, such an exceptional price point. As I said, I've been fortunate to try so many different sparklings. This producer is sensational, particularly for the price point. You have to meet strict criteria to be classified as a Crémant from any of the different Crémant regions, but particularly Burgundy, stylistically the same, like same grape varieties, the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir. The Blanc de Blanc, as I said, is so far the closest sort of weightless feel that I can find to Salon, which is thousands of dollars a bottle. It is just, oh, if you ever get a chance to try it, that is incredible. But honestly, for the price point, I cannot go past Veuve Ambal. I know I've said this a few times now, but it's honestly my go-to. It's just, yeah, fantastic. I will definitely, for me, I'll be opening probably this one on Christmas Day or New Year's Eve because, yeah, I can't beat it. It's too good. Cheers.